So this is like my idea slash plan on what I makes sense logically to help out the people who are like making the sets and stuff. So first off, we start with having basically like just pretend these houses aren't here for now. And basically it's just gonna be like, I don't know how this works, I don't know how set works, and I can't remember how big it is backstage, but basically just like a big board or like a big I think it should be like a big like board, like I don't know, like styrofoam or something that's painted like dark, like a dark sky, and then has like mountains, and then we have a separate actual like Willy Wonka's like factory thing. This thing itself, either it's its own separate thing. No, I don't think it should be its own separate thing. I think it should be connected with this, and this can be a set that is moved in and out, like this whole part. But I'm pretty sure if I watched it, no, not if I watched it. I'm pretty sure when I watched it that it kind of stays there for most of the production except for some parts where they're actually in the factory, but for most of it it's there in the distance. So, yeah. And then the first thing that rolls on, if I remember, is this. This is his little candy store, basically. I'm thinking it be moving on wheels depending on what we make it out of. Like, if we make it out of plywood, it won't be that heavy, but I think it's still a pretty hefty prop that we have to move around. So I think it'd be good just to have it on, like, maybe, like, those little circle things. Because I know in the actual production it's a circle, but I forgot to draw it like that, so just pretend it is. Okay, and so you can move it with wheels, and then this whole like cash register would be like a separate thing that the tech would, like, that crew would bring in. It has basically a bunch of just sweet props that are super easy to make, and it moves on wheels, and the door is on a hinge on this pole here, and it can open and close because that's cool. I don't know. And now the second prop or set that comes on stage is the bedroom. It's this one, is the bedroom. Now, in the Broadway production with Christian, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, it's more of like a double bunk bed, but I feel like A, we can't afford that, B, I don't know if we can make that. I mean, we made a chandelier, but I don't know if we can make that, and 3, I don't know if it'll be actually safe. So I figured we just make one big prop bed and have them all in their like little designated areas, but have Grandpa Joe on the very end so we can do his whole walking thing when the time comes, and then obviously Charlie's chair. But I noticed in the production I watched that somewhere later on in the musical, Charlie's mom makes this like clothing rack thing basically, and I don't know what we do for that, just because like this would take up a lot of room, because in the production I watched, it's all very, like, condensed into one area of the stage and one area of the stage. And I think I just may have drawn my things too big, or I made the stage too small, whatever. And then that goes away. Then the first person gets announced, and I've noticed that this little, like, stand kind of just stays there for a lot of the production, which I don't mind. If that's the case, we might be able to get away with not having it on wheels and just pushing it on stage, but I still think it should be on, like, lockable wheels, just for, like, the convenience for crew to be able to just push it on stage with ease and then have, like, someone else deal with the table. But then we start getting to the part where there's announcers. Now, in the production, they have an entire actual, like, here, let me make a new layer. They have an entire actual, like, thing that goes right here, and it has a big B on it, and it's for, like, broadcast or whatever. But that takes a lot of time and money, and I think that we could probably just get away with having, like, the table and, like, because the only thing that really comes out during the individual songs for the characters, for the children, is just this, like, table, basically. Because it goes Augustus, and then next after Augustus, it's Veruca, and Veruca has nothing. And then after that, it's the Queen of Pop, and she also doesn't have anything that goes on stage for her. But the TV people are where it happens. So I'm thinking for TV, we can roll this thing. It's pretty big, but I think we can do it by getting away with having like a like a plywood wall here, plywood wall here, plywood wall in the back, and then doing some kind of like overarching thing to make it look like a TV kind of thing. Obviously having like fake furniture or real furniture, it depends on if we find like a couch and a chair. But obviously Mike sits here and then the what guy sits here. And so that'll be wheeled on stage. They'll do their thing. It has to withstand Mike, like, kind of going insane. So, again, locking wheels, but maybe of, like, a bigger, stronger sense. And we can obviously always, like, cover the wheels, especially with this, with, like, a little curtain attached to the top that just barely goes, like, just above it. So that way the wheels don't get stuck under it, but it still is a good cover-up. And then that comes off. Okay, and then now this thing finally comes off stage, and now it's what I think what should happen is I think that the houses should be rolled away. Next is I don't know if there is an intermission of this show, because obviously when you watch recordings it skips intermission, so I don't know what an intermission is and if we have enough time to actually get this whole thing on stage. But I think this whole like fence gate can be like painted fabric that gets put up and on a pole, or honestly just like a big long like plywood. I keep saying plywood, but plywood is so light and like easy to work with that we could get rid of, like, we could get away with having like fenced plywood basically, and having like a little, like, either having this be like a curtain or two doors that can open up or something like that. Because that's where Wonka comes out when he's doing the old man, and then he trips and falls on the red carpet and invites everyone in. And there's a scene where he opens the doors and pushes everyone in. And I'm thinking we could probably do that if we, like, secretly paint. We can probably do that by painting something underneath, like, right underneath these doors on this, like, thing. Or what I tried to draw was this little front piece. It's separate from this back, like, factory piece, which could easily just be, like, a 2D set that the crew brings on after this is put up. I think, like, the way it should go is that this little area should get put first and then this should get put up. But if we can paint, like, an elevator or, like, something, like, just, like, a black space even, and, like, have everyone kind of, like, all the parents and the kids fit in there, I think it would work, and it would get the effect, and then the doors get closed by Wonka. Like, he pulls them in through on his side. He'll walk in, and then from the backside, he'll be facing the audience, and he can close them into himself. I think that would work. Okay, so here comes the fun part. So this is when everyone is in the factory, and it's all blue. This is super easy. I think you would just probably have the houses still in the background and stuff. I just didn't draw it here, and then I remember that you can't just, like, put a piece of plywood in front of everything. But you can just pretend that the houses in the beginning are still here. And just have, like, a really vivid blue cast over everything. I don't know how lighting works. I only know how, like, design works, so obviously it'd be like talking with lighting and stuff like that, but it would be just like a red podium, and in the play there's like a little, like, not cabinet but compartment where he takes all the confiscated items. I don't know why I'm explaining this to you, you probably already know this, but he's standing there, and then here's the scanner. These aren't in the same scene. The scanner comes much later, but I forgot that and drew it before I actually, like, went through it, so it's there. But it's literally just like a red door frame. It's not hard. But this comes when they're doing the invisible maze, invisible, like, trial parkour thing. I don't know. And then I was thinking for the whole, like, strike that and reverse it, like, scene, because I really like in the play they have it where they kind of all stand in a group and they get bunched up by Wonka slamming the contract into somebody, and then them trying to turn around and pass it to each other, but them getting stuck in it. And it's like this big, and it's super easy to make. You just basically take, like, a long amount of hijab fabric, paint on it, and seal it, and you can tug on it and wrap yourself in it. Like, we just gotta make it really long though, which is not an issue. I can probably do that. It's super easy. Okay, so the next scene that comes up is the candy forest scene. So I'm not quite sure about this one yet, just because it's such a hefty prop, and we really don't have a lot of room backstage because of the Romeo and Juliet bridge thing and also the band teacher's Dr. Seuss book thing. So, but if I can outline it, I think that it'd be good if we had this as a something on wheels and these things as a 2D, these bushes as like a 2D thing that crew brings on. That like a separate crew brings on, and then obviously this being its own thing as well. But it could just be like a parade float, if that makes sense, where it's just like a thing that, and then obviously we can put bushes and leaves like with like basically either tissue paper or paper, it doesn't matter, to cover the wheels and have them have a locking mechanism. But this is where it gets interesting because Augustus has to dive into a waterfall of fudge, and the way I saw production do it was they basically just like made they just took curtains and put them at such an angle where they were kind of like below here, but having like a space backstage, or not backstage, but like basically Augustus can just like dive in, like he can get stuck in the curtains and then pull himself or have someone pull him out. Okay, so the scene after that is technically the maze scene, like the invisible maze. But I already talked about it for this thing, so I'm gonna move on. So this isn't the prettiest thing I've ever drawn, but the one in a lot of the productions are pretty complicated, and I kind of want to simplify this a little bit just to make it a little easier on the people who are making like the backgrounds and stuff, because I think Clue and then Willy Wonka back to back is gonna be really hard. So just kind of finding like a little cheat where we can is always nice. But we could get away with having this 2D set, like this thing individually. But it'd be nice if it could be more of like a dome, and have it so that there's like this little part here can swing open and he can pull out the liquid sunshine, and then obviously just kind of like the gobstopper or whatever it is, and that's pretty self-explanatory. So next thing, I didn't really know what to do. I was thinking we could just black out the background. I don't know, because the next scene that comes up, or the next, like, set, whatever, is the Oompa Loompas, like, in this weird line factory thing, and it's, like, and it kind of, like, it just, like, it kind of just, like, extends throughout the whole thing, and it's a whole moving thing, and they're all individually placed, and that's insane. I think we can get away with not Veruca, the Queen of Pop, I don't know her name, like running around back and forth often on stage and having the Oompa Loompas just in the background, kind of as like the same effect as when they do their solo song in the jungle, where they're all kind of just like obviously in their black suits on their knees, but it's kind of just like it's a projected background, but I know projections are like, so just it's about the lighting, kind of like with Phantom, where we didn't really have the option to change the scene as much because it kind of worked with everything. So just blacking out the background, I think, would be sufficient enough. And then obviously the dancing scene where they all dance. Willy Wonka does his, like, lead up to the Oompa Loompas singing in the jungle, where he's, like, a vicious killer, and he's, like, running back and forth on the stage. I think just, like, a really, really bright white, like, what is it, spotlight, and just having it follow him around, and having the background blacked out, or having it green, and like, green and change colors, like, mimic a forest. I think that'll be, like, just fine. Okay, wait, no, I lied. So the maze scene is next after this. They go through the scanner originally for when he confiscates their goods, but this is the second time the scanner pops up, where they go through and they have to go through the maze. So again, self-explanatory. Okay, so here comes the interesting part. So in a lot of the productions I watched, obviously they're professional productions, so they have this big moving conveyor belt that, like, goes up and down, and there's, like, these big squirrel costumes. It'd be fun to do the squirrel costumes, but I think the conveyor belt, we just don't have enough room for it. So my idea is that what we could do is we could have, like, a pile of prop nuts that, you don't have to have the labeled signs, I just put theirs for myself, but ones that look really rotted and gross and disgusting, and those are the bad nuts, and ones that look really, like, nice and shiny and good, and having a scale, and having the squirrels, and like doing a choreography thing that's different from the production I've watched, where they kind of just like follow her around and twirl her. But I think at some point, like in the middle of them doing that, they can sit her on the prop, like on this like weighing thing, and it will either lean good or bad, which I think could be controlled by Veruca pulling a string, like reaching behind her and pulling a string while she's getting weighed, and like the squirrel's kind of blocking the string, and so that way that this thing gets pulled to the bad side. Because I put the bad side over here, but technically if you were to add a string, it would be over here, but whatever. And then the squirrels would go into, like, killing her. Okay, so the next scene is the bathtub being pulled. So, I say in the production so much, but in the production, it's basically this boat, this bathtub, on a platform on this, like, big crane thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it goes up and down, and it's, like, super up, and so they're floating, and that way it looks like Charlie and Grandpa Joe are, like, really, like, below the water trying to find them. I think we could get away with... I know fog machine is bad, because the fog machines that we can get a hold of make the fire alarm set off, and that's not good. But if we can get a hold of a fog machine that doesn't do that, it'd be cool to do a fog machine and have it... The scene before this, everyone is on stage because they're all doing the Veruca song. They can, like, lay a rope down, kind of like how, like, in Phantom we did that interlude where the ballerinas kind of danced on stage bringing the rope on. I think we could do that with the squirrels as well and just have it be pulled by a rope because, yeah, but having 3 whole people in the boat might be hard. So we might want to add wheels just to make it a little easier on the person who's pulling the boat. Obviously, we're going to have Mike, and then we're going to have Wonka, and then we're going to have the mom, Mike's mom. Yeah, the boat gets pulled across, and then for the scene, we can just make the sides of the stage white, because I don't know what else to do for, like, the danger children might die thing. I know I said I didn't know what to do, but I have an idea that we could basically take 2 long rectangular pieces of plywood that crew can quickly put on when Charlie and Grandpa Joe are on stage, and then have them take it off, basically. It'll obviously be blue because they're supposed to be underwater and stuff. Okay, so the next scene is the Mike TV scene, and this is kind of what I drew up. This is basically a replica of the production with Christian. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I won't. And this is the thing where the Wonka bar gets shrunk down and then he gets shrunk down. So, we could get away, or we will get away, with having this thing be just a 2D thing, like a circle plywood, and then like a plywood thing going down the middle to basically make it a stable prop and just have crew carry it on. The Wonka bar can be a thing that is put on top afterwards, because I think that with the 2D thing, we can put a ladder behind it for Mike's so that it looks like he's standing on top of it. And again, fog machine will help hide what he looks like going away. But what we could have him do is just, like, put his hands down and, like, jump off. I don't know, like, the realistic choreography for that. But someone in the back, there will be someone to help him. So when tech or crew carries it on, there's going to be someone, like, shuffling with them that will pull down the Wonka bar to, like, obviously hide it. Either have 2 people and, like, lift Mike down or, like, pull him down. And then in here, it'll just be a blank screen. Because, yeah. And have, like, a little compartment that the mom can reach in, which pull out, and that Mike reaches in, pulls out the Wonka bar, obviously. And then she reaches in. And I can find, like, a cheapo doll and just make it look like whatever costume that Mike is wearing. And that'll be super easy, and she can just pull it out. For Vidiots, I didn't really have an idea. Okay, so that's also a big fat lie because I ended up recording this twice. So the second time around, I came up with an idea to basically have a stretching kind of frame work type of situation where it's like 3 rectangular boxes next to each other, but it's 2D and then the middles are open to look like TVs so that the actor who plays Mike can basically jump around through them and make it look like he's jumping through television. And having the astronaut dancers kind of take away the show or the astronaut costumes or whatever. I don't know how to describe it. It's weird. The rest of the show, there's nothing. Like, literally nothing. So, again, we just have this whole back area blacked out. And I like the effect they did for Grandpa Joe and Charlie when they're climbing up the ladder, and it's like kind of like a stripy, like there's white, but there's like like a shadow overcast where it's like stripy, so it looks like a ladder, and they're just like basically air climbing it. I think that it'll be a little goofy, but I think it looks cool, and I think it's fun, and I think it's like a good shortcut, so we don't have to make another thing. And so for the whole scene with Wonka and Charlie, obviously we have the blue podium, where Charlie reads his book and he sits down on the floor and he's like, wow, and then he writes in the book, and basically him and Joe walk off stage, and then the rest of the scene can just be whoever's Charlie and whoever's Wonka, like having a square light on them, like a tall square light on them, and having them super close together to make it look like they're in an elevator, and have Charlie like fake push a button basically, and then have them sing the whole thing, the whole like view from here thing, and then blackout and curtains. Yay!